One of the organizations I've been a little bit down on over the past couple of years has been the Baltimore Ravens, because I thought this was a team that was getting older in bad ways, in the wrong places, and for all the good things that Ozzie Newsome has done as a general manager over the years, in recent years, I think he's whiffed on some draft picks, and then when he has hit on some guys, he's ultimately been in no real hurry to keep a lot of them, and then seems to break his back and his hand trying to pat himself on the back for getting compensatory picks for letting these guys walk in free agency for nothing else. And, while the Ravens had a better year in 2016, it's crazy to me. Statistically, they were a top 5 to 7 defense in the NFL, and they still finished with an 8-8 record. That's not good. You would hope if one of your units is elite, which you could have argued last year, the Ravens defense was borderline elite, that you would be good enough to at least have a winning record and hopefully be a playoff team, especially since you have a so-called franchise-type quarterback in Joe Flacco, and it just didn't happen. Now, in this offseason, you saw John Urschel retire, you saw Steve Smith retire, you saw the Ravens let Ricky Wagner leave via free agency. They did bring in Tony Jefferson to be another safety along with Eric Weddle, so I like what they did there. And they kind of got a bonus pick-me-up, I thought, from Jeremy Maclin being surprisingly waived by the Kansas City Chiefs. For whatever reason that was, I think the Chiefs' decision is definitely the Baltimore Ravens' gain here. When you look at this team on paper, what are their strengths, what are their potential weaknesses? I think Joe Flacco's still got to be somewhat of a strength if he's healthy, if he's on the field, which is a bit of a question. And in the sense that there are a number of NFL teams that are good with their quarterback. I wouldn't take Flacco, but there are a lot of other teams that would take Joe Flacco. Again, so somewhat similar to Andy Dalton in that middle-of-the-road kind of range. But this is a guy at one point in time that has won a Super Bowl and has a lot of playoff and big game experience, and at times has been productive and very good in big game type of situations. This is a team whose defense is still, on paper, looks to be really, really good. Their run defense should continue to be a strength. Their secondary and their pass defense as a whole, I thought, was markedly better in 2016. And the addition of Tony Jefferson to that secondary, along with Eric Weddle and guys like Jimmy Smith, the secondary should be relatively stout. So the defense should still be carrying the day for this team, which kind of, when the Ravens have been at their best, has been kind of the identity of the organization anyways. But weaknesses or potential questions. Where's the running game going to come from? And I don't know if that answer is on this roster. And you could talk about a Terrace West, or you talk about this guy, or you talk about that guy. The fact is those guys were there in 2016, and their rushing game of the Ravens sucked. I don't see how it's going to get magically a whole lot better with basically the same pieces at play 1 year later. Then the defensive side of the ball, the pass rush concerns me, because if Terrell Suggs doesn't get the pass rush, who the hell else is going to? And again, at some point in time, Terrell Suggs is in his mid-30s now. You got to figure he's towards the end of the road. What happens if he's hurt? What happens if he decides he doesn't want to do it anymore? What happens if he's just not any good anymore? Where the hell is that pass rush going to come from? Who's going to step up? They've invested a lot in young edge rushers in recent drafts. You got to get something out of them. I don't know if it's Kamalei Correa, even though it sounds like they're going to play him inside. Maybe it's a Bronson Kafusi, but they've put him on the line in the 3-4. Is it Matt Judon? Is it somebody like Tim Williams, your third-round pick from Alabama? They need somebody to give an explosive edge rush, because you could only count on Terrell Suggs for so much at this point in time, as remarkable as his career has been. And even with him, that still means you need some more. And without him, then you're really in trouble. In terms of players to watch defensively, I think you got to go edge rushers not named Terrell Suggs. Some of the guys I named. One or two of those guys needs to step up. One or two of those guys needs to be able to fill a gap, fill a void, and provide some depth at the edge rush position. Offensively, I look at Breshad Perryman, the 2015 first-round pick, who has given you very, very little over 2 years. You might not have noticed the failure of Breshad Perryman so far, because of Steve Smith being there the past couple of years, Mike Wallace being a good addition in 2016. But the fact is now, come 2017, you're in year 3 of Breshad Perryman. You need him to do something. You need him to be the better version of Torrey Smith that you envisioned him to be when you took him in the first round in 2015. And so far, you've seen no real indications that that's coming. If he can be, though, along with the Jeremy Maclin and a Mike Wallace, now you've got more for Joe Flacco to work with in the Ravens passing game. Now, looking ahead to this team's schedule, I think there are two key stretches at the beginning and then at the end. The first 4 weeks of the season, they've got 3 divisional games and then a game on the road against Jacksonville. You go to Cincinnati to start off the season, then host Cleveland, go to Jacksonville, host Pittsburgh. If the Baltimore Ravens want to be serious here in 2017, if the Baltimore Ravens want to be a playoff team, if they want to potentially mix it up with the Steelers a little bit in this division, if they have any shot at that at all, they must go 3-1 in those first 4 games or else it's basically over, especially for banging with the Steelers. Playoff race, if they go 2-2, they're not totally out of it, but they haven't done themselves any favors. If they can go 3-1 and win 2 divisional games out of those 3 wins, then they've set themselves up decently the first quarter of the season. Then the last 4 weeks of the season, if they're in the mix, they go to Pittsburgh, go to Cleveland, host Indianapolis, host Cincinnati. So you look at that, and it could be a stretch of time where the Pittsburgh game could be really challenging. But those last 3 games, including 2 divisional games again, could be eminently winnable. And for that, and then factoring in Joe Flacco, factoring in the strength of the defense, I think we could see a slightly better Ravens team in 2017. I think 9-7 is very realistic. 10 wins is possible. I still don't think they have enough to bang with the Steelers in that division, but they could keep it close for a good portion of the season and be in the mix for the wild card when all is said and done.